Mario Kart 64's track selection is strange. Why is that? Well, because this was the first game with 3D tracks after Super Mario Kart on the SNES only had different variations of squares. This led to the creation of absolutely iconic tracks, but also some serious stinkers, because, well, the developers probably weren't too familiar with this extra dimension. I never played this game up until very recently, and because of its incredible discrepancies in quality regarding its tracks, I thought it'd be fun to take a look and rank all of them. Totally unbiased, of course. Yoshi Valley is a very interesting track to say the least. Instead of just being a straightforward race to the finish, on this course you can choose from a variety of different routes, and honestly, that's a pretty cool idea. It's just that the execution feels a little shitty. While it is admittedly quite fun to try all the different routes, I still for the life of me don't know which one is actually the fastest. And because everyone just goes in different directions, items can be a little useless at times. Red shells also don't work in different sections because of how small some of the ridges are, and speaking of ridges, when you fall off of one, it takes Lakitu about 6 to 10 business days to finally get you back up on the track. I don't know, I'm just not a fan of this track, and I never have been. Banshee Boardwalk is this game's ghost theme track, and it does that pretty well. The dark atmosphere is nice, and the music turns it into something quite spooky. Driving around it, though, is not my favorite thing in the world. Again, some parts of this track just don't lend themselves to the controls very well, meaning there's a bunch of corners you can't take very fast without falling off of the track or running into the guardrails. The house section is the only visually interesting part of the circuit, but there's a different annoyance there because there's a bunch of bats flying straight into your face. They aren't a real obstacle and only slow you down slightly, so they're just here to mildly annoy the player. At that point, just don't even fucking bother. Overall, this track is just very meh, and doesn't really have anything going for it if I'm being honest. Wait, what? Oh. I've just been notified this track is home to a big-ass fish. Forget I said anything, this is the best track in the game. Moo Moo Farm is the next track on the list, and again, I'm unfortunately not the biggest fan of this one. This track has always felt very bland and boring to me. The layout is uninteresting, it looks like dog shit, and the only slightly interesting thing about the track is the Monty moles that are on the inside of certain turns, leaving you with the choice to take a more risky line to save some time or go around them and lose some time. But other than that, this track is just a bit of a nothing burger I'd gladly skip when playing this game. Luigi Raceway is quite literally the definition of the term starter course, because wow, this layout is bland. You're basically driving on a slightly bent oval, and that's about everything. I will say though, as a starter course, it doesn't really do anything wrong, because those very long corners allow you to get to grips with the way drifting works in this game. And it still has some interesting aspects too. The music is fire, the visuals are pretty interesting with the stands and the tunnel you drive through, and there's even an item box hanging from a balloon you can only obtain by hopping at the right moment. So while this track definitely isn't anything to write home about, it's a solid beginner course that still has its fun elements. It's just very inoffensive. I honestly do not understand why Sherbetland is hated as much as it is. I mean, it has its annoyances, but I honestly feel like people are sometimes hating on this track just for the sake of hating on it. I've always thoroughly enjoyed the version of this track in Mario Kart Wii, and on the N64, I don't think it's a bad track at all. I think the penguins are incredibly charming obstacles, the ice physics aren't nearly as bad as I expected, and I always love trying out how much risk I can take by cutting some of the corners. Visually, there's also a bit of variety with the cave you drive through. This section can be a little bothersome sometimes though, because it's very hard to see what's coming up after the corner, making it a little difficult to dodge some of the penguins that are marching through the cave. But that really is my only complaint with this track. It's not bad at all, just not groundbreaking either. Putting Bowser's Castle this low is probably going to turn some heads, especially because in my video in which I went through every Mario Kart game, I called this an awesome layout that is so much fun to race around. And while I still kinda stand by this, considering I love this track in Mario Kart Wii, in 64 I find myself still having quite some issues with it. While the music and atmosphere of this track are really good and the track has some fresh elements, I find myself annoyed more so than excited when this one pops up. Firstly, some of the hallways just don't feel fun to drive through because they're so small and Mario Kart 64's controls don't allow for quick adjustments, meaning you can't dodge items at the last second and you're constantly running into the walls when driving at high speed. I also hate how the sliding thwomps spin you out instead of just blocking you, and it really pisses me off that these thwomps only follow me as the player and not the CPUs. This just feels incredibly unfair. Other than that, the layout is great, but I just can't really seem to get into it. And you might be thinking, that's a total skill issue, and you'd be correct, but this video is everything but this, so 11th it is. Just peeping the top 10 is Frappe Snowland, yet another snow-themed level. And I will say that I do slightly prefer this one over Sherbetland. The layout is pretty good, it has a bit of variety in visuals, from snowy landscapes to a narrow corridor, and it has this absolute minefield of snowmen. At first I found this to be a very annoying part of the course because of Mario Kart 64 slippery controls, but ultimately it resulted in a pretty fun challenge. The corridor is fun as well because of how you can bounce items off of the walls, so there's quite a few interesting gameplay elements too. All in all, it's definitely not a bad track. It's not outstanding either, but it's just decent. Toad's Turnpike is the only street track in this game, and after my ranking of the Double Dash courses, you might have expected me to put this one higher on the list. And I was compelled to do so for a number of reasons, but unfortunately this one doesn't quite yet hit the same as the street tracks in Double Dash. I do want to start out by saying this track has great atmosphere and music. It's a real vibe just driving on this highway during sundown, and weaving through the traffic in this setting is genuinely really fun. Unfortunately though, the controls do ruin the experience somewhat, specifically when trying to thread the needle in between two trucks. It's very hard to not hit any of them without slowing down, and that to me brings this track down by quite a bit. This only happens a few times per race, however, so it's not enough to completely ruin the track, but it's clear there was still some work to do on the developer side when it came to street tracks. But for a first attempt, not bad at all. Mario Raceway might just seem like a very boring circuit track, but honestly, I think this is actually one of the more interesting in the series. I think visually it offers quite a bit of variety, with the hills, the gravel trap, and the pipe you drive through. And when it comes to the track itself, it doesn't disappoint either. There's enough opportunities to skip parts of the track, and overall, the layout works very well. It's a lot more interesting than Luigi Raceway, and has some awesome corners that can really test your drifting abilities. This is the first track in the game without very obvious flaws, and for that, I think it deserves a spot in the top half of the list. Which says a lot about Mario Kart 64's overall quality. Choco Mountain, because Canyon was already patented. This is a track that visually is interesting and f***ing disgusting at the same time. Like, what exactly am I looking at here? There's no way you can convince me this is chocolate. Anyway, the track layout is definitely one of the more interesting ones from this game. Its narrower sections add some difficulty, the falling boulders are a fun obstacle to dodge, all the jumps are very fun to take, and I love how falling off of the track in a specific section can set you back instead of immediately respawning. Red shells again don't work very well on this course, and running into the walls can sometimes suddenly stop you dead in your tracks, but regardless, I think this is one of the better tracks in this game. Calamari Desert is one of the tracks from this game that are always remembered very fondly, and there's a good reason for that. The vibes of this track are immaculate with its sunset, the music, and a f***ing train! I personally think this is a very fun mechanic because oftentimes you'll either have to wait for the train or you could take a risk and try to make it pass before it reaches the crossing. Other than that though, the track's layout is very bland if I'm being honest. It's nothing offensive or anything, but I definitely wouldn't call this track exciting. Even so, the vibe it gives off and the fact that it doesn't really have anything destroying the experience, I still find myself enjoying it quite a bit. And overall, I think it's a very decent and unique experience. Rainbow Road is kind of in the same boat as Calamari Desert, where the track really isn't that interesting, but it completely gets carried by its atmosphere. The track layout is very simple, very long, considering it takes up to 6 minutes to complete a race on it, and there's guardrails everywhere, so it's not a very high-stakes track at all. But damn it, I enjoy playing this one. I don't know, just the music and the visuals of the characters in the background, the big drop at the beginning, the random chain jump suddenly flying across the track. I just adore this track's atmosphere, and it results in such a fantastic experience. And the weird thing is, this isn't even rooted in nostalgia, because I never played this game up until a year ago, and when an atmosphere can feel that good, even without the nostalgia, it deserves a place in the top 5. What the fuck? Why would you put Wario Stadium so high? That track is buns, dude. Yeah, I can already predict all the comments I'm gonna be getting for this one, but listen up. The critique this track often gets is that it is too long, visually uninteresting, and just not that enjoyable to race on. And I hear those points, I just don't agree with them. I genuinely enjoy playing on this track, and I find it somewhat overhated. Like, yes, it might be long, but I find this track as one of the more interesting layouts. The sharper turns, the jumps, the bumps. This definitely feels like a solid stadium course, and the thing that makes me enjoy this one even more is that it has some very driftable corners, unlike many other tracks. This is one of those rare occasions where the controls of this game really don't bother me that much. And yes, this track might not be perfect, but in my opinion, it's still very fun to race around. Koopa Troopa Beach is the first track that I would say has no flaws whatsoever. The beach visuals look interesting, and the way certain rocks are reminiscent of Koopas is just really cool to me. And it doesn't just have great visuals, because the layout is solid too, with some alternate routes, a big amount of jumps leading into item boxes, and a pretty difficult to reach but highly effective shortcut. It also has some interesting obstacles in the forms of crabs, and I think the music is really fun as well. I don't really have much more to say about it, just a very good track with interesting visuals and course design, and a place in the top 3 seem more than deserved to me. I'm starting to notice a little bit of a trend with this monkey coming in second. Yeah. DK Jungle Parkway is without a doubt one of the best tracks in this game. Its layout feels like you're exploring a jungle, and it has an amazing variety in visuals. The jungle you drive through, the skinny bridge across the waterfall, the cave, and the river with the paddle steamer traveling through it. This whole track just has an amazing vibe. The layout is great as well, and has some good difficulty to it, like the narrow entrance to the bridge, the way you can skip a huge portion of the track by taking a mushroom shortcut in a cave. The challenges on this track just feel really fun, and are perfectly in tune with the way Mario Kart 64's controls work. And obviously, we can't forget about that huge jump across the river. This track is amazing, but there is one other track that just about beats it in my opinion. And now we arrive at the best track in Mario Kart 64, which in my opinion is Royal Raceway. And holy sh**, this is a good one. Beginning at the start line, there's a crowd that cheers you on before diving into a variety of tight corners. Eventually, you end up at a turn that's amazing to drift through, and then it's time for the main attraction of this course, the jump across the lake. Once you land, you'll drive past Peach's castle, which you could even drive up to if you'd want. And the lap ends with some more tricky corners that you can easily skip if you have mushrooms. The layout is just fantastic. It requires skill, strategy, and is overall an absolute blast to race on. The music is the same as the other circuit tracks, which is great because I love that song, and the track even has some exploration to it, making it feel incredibly unique. This has to be the very best track this game has to offer, and might just be the best circuit type track in the entire franchise. It really is that good. So the only place I could put it realistically is first. but it doesn't have a big ass fish. Damn it, it was this close to perfection. And that's my ranking of every course in Mario Kart 64. Let me know your favorite and least favorite track from this game in the comments, and when you're down there, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And if you'd like to see more of me ranking Mario Kart tracks, be sure to check out this video next, in which I rank every course in Mario Kart Double Dash.